night hung heavy with a thick fog, swallowing the headlights of Jake's truck as he navigated the desolate highway. A breeze seeped through the cracks, and the darkness seemed to stretch infinitely beyond the reach of his high beams. Raindrops tapped against the windshield, like ghostly fingers, a rhythm that mirrored the unease creeping into Jake's mind. As he drove through the lonely expanse, a figure emerged from the shadows, flickering like a spectre in the peripheral vision of his headlights. A hitchhiker standing at the side of the road, drenched and seemingly unaffected by the rain. The sight sent a shiver down Jake's spine, but a sense of empathy compelled him to pull over. The hitchhiker approached the truck, his face hidden beneath the hood of a tattered jacket. He opened the door without a word, and the stale scent of dampness filled the truck as he settled into the passenger seat. The only visible feature was a pair of blue eyes that seemed to pierce through the very darkness. "Thanks for stopping," the hitchhiker finally spoke, his voice a low murmur that carried a strange, otherworldly quality. Jake nodded, his unease growing with every passing mile. He stole glances at the silent passenger beside him, whose gaze remained fixed on the road ahead. The rain intensified, creating a rhythmic drumming on the roof of the truck. As they drove through the desolate night, he attempted small talk, but the hitchhiker only responded with cryptic remarks. Jake nervously spoke up and asked the hitchhiker, "So, what do you do?" The hitchhiker turned to Jake and responded, "I pick crops for a living, primarily poppy seed crops." Jake thought about what he had just heard, and before he could even think of a response, suddenly, "We're all passengers here, you know," the hitchhiker said, his eyes never leaving the road, "just drifting through the night, bound by fate and the choices we make." Jake's grip tightened on the steering wheel. The atmosphere inside the car grew heavy, as if the car itself carried a burden. Glancing at the hitchhiker, he noticed a strange glow emanating from the folds of his jacket. A soft, pulsating light that seemed to defy the natural order. "Where are you headed?" Jake asked, attempting to break the oppressive silence. The hitchhiker's response sent a chill down Jake's spine. "Should you be asking me so many questions when you are not even in control?" The rain outside had turned into torrential downpours, obscuring the surroundings in a watery veil. "What?" Jake replied. Jake turned his face and kept an eye on the road, as the hitchhiker seemed to not reply to him anymore. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. The road ahead showed multiple road signs, and these read Sleepy Creek 5 miles away and Wake Harp Waters 10 miles away. In the silence, 5 miles may as well have been 50. The tingling hairs on Jake's neck seemed to itch as his anxiety built to a crescendo. Another mile and another, and suddenly the hitchhiker began shouting at Jake. "You are not even in control right now. Have you really forgotten?" Inside the car was becoming confrontational. I was the only person who stopped for you, and this is how you fool, the hitchhiker commanded suddenly, his voice bellowing through everything else. The rhythmic tapping of raindrops on the roof reverberated like a metronome. "Do you even know where you are?" the hitchhiker said. Bewildered, Jake looked ahead. In mere moments, we are about to approach Wake Harp Waters, he said, pointing at the bright city lights looming ahead of them. The hitchhiker laughed softly. He turned at Jake and suddenly lunged at him. Jake felt the man's grubby fingers grabbing his head, while simultaneously bringing his own face closer. The contrast of his piercing blue eyes and him screaming like a maniac was overwhelming. "Wake Harp! Wake Harp! Wake up!" Jake removed his arm from his face, his wrists covered in sticky saliva. His eyes winced as he saw the bright lights ahead, dancing in front of him like spectral fireflies. He kept looking, and now he could hear a loud sound screaming at him from the same direction the lights were originally coming from. The sounds were getting even more louder now. Desperate panic set in, and his eyes widened as he realized that the lights and sounds from in front of him were from an oncoming truck. Jake aggressively turned his steering wheel, trying to avoid the incoming vehicle, barely managing to do so. In the days and weeks that followed these events, Jake couldn't shake off the feeling that he had glimpsed something beyond the ordinary. The hitchhiker's words lingered, haunting him in the quiet moments of reflection. He found himself drawn to finding out the truth. He continued to drive along the same stretch of road, hoping to prove himself right. Was this all for nothing? Was I just a drunk madman like everyone thinks I am? It may have been the hum of the engine, or the patter of rain against the windshield that reminded him of the past ordeal. But eventually, it all just became too much. He started to hyperventilate and cry profusely. He started crying like someone begging for their life. Him crying as much as he had caused his cheeks to bruise. Jake pulled over and fell to the foot pedals of his truck. At probably the lowest point ever, Jake had felt something grainy on his hands. "What the fuck is this?" he said to himself. Jake sat back up onto his driver's seat, brought his hands up to his face to inspect what this was, when a huge grin appeared across his face. Poppy seeds.